Okay, I'm there, I think.
Okay, now do Zoom, type in zoom.us.
Okay. I see everyone. I just don't have my picture there.
Oh, okay, so you see everybody?
I can see Adam and I can see Mr. St.
Okay.
Omar, but I can't
Okay,
see.
look down at the bottom and you'll see where it says start video. Mine is on the left-hand side.
Okay, I'm
There
in.
you go.
I'm in. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, is there anyone else that we're waiting on? Natalie? Natalie, are you there?
Hold on just a second.
No problem. I just wasn't sure if
I can hear everything.
Okay. So we are already in session. Normally we do the Pledge of Allegiance at our meetings, but as we are not in rooms with flags and may or may not be standing up right now, we'll bypass that for the time being as we're in a virtual meeting. Dr. Adams, are there any student or staff recognitions?
Yes, I'd like to read one. Obviously, we don't have the staff here, but I think they are listening. For tonight's Salute to Excellence, we would like to recognize several members of the executive leadership team who really have gone above and beyond to ensure our students have access to virtual learning during the stay-at-home order. I'd like to recognize the academic team led by Dr. Paula Knight and their work quickly to put together weeks of continuous learning materials, content that can be accessed online, along with printed content available at meal distribution sites. I would also like to recognize the technology team led by Mrs. Cheryl Van Oy, Deputy Superintendent of Technology. They have arranged for the district to obtain and distribute over 10,000 iPads and 4,000 hotspots. Again, we're still in the process of doing it. This is day 8 for families that lack access to technology. This effort takes a great deal of planning and coordination. And lastly, really not lastly, but I'd like to thank Mrs. Althea Santiago, Albert Santiago, Director of Food and Services, and our partners at Southwest Food Service Excellence. They've distributed tens of thousands of meals. We'll get an update tonight in terms of what they're going to be doing moving forward. They came online quickly. They were the first support services we had up and running, and they continue to be flexible and ready to serve at the drop of a hat. So I want to thank them. And lastly, I want to thank all the school site personnel, including principals, teachers, and support staff, who have been always on the front line, fielding calls, finding information, problem solving, moving boxes, technology, and providing leadership for teachers and families. This has been a very difficult time, as you already know. Persons have actually put their lives on the line to be in spaces where the notion of spacing, if you will, social distancing, is a new concept that we all have gotten used to now, and we have had some really challenges in that space. So I want to thank the persons who have worked really hard to make this happen. I know they will continue to do so over the next 4 to 6 weeks, or whatever time it takes to address this pandemic that we're in. So kudos to the persons who've done this kind of work, and I want to thank them and their team for working so hard to meet the needs of our students in our community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, I appreciate everyone's hard work right now. I know this has been a huge, huge undertaking, and your work is not going unnoticed. So I'm glad that you were able to recognize those individuals tonight. Is there a motion to approve and adopt the April 14th, 2020 regular business meeting agenda?
I move that we approve and adopt the April 14th regular business meeting agenda. I'm sorry, April 14th, 2020 regular business meeting agenda.
Thank you. Second, Ms. Lewis?
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones, Ms. S. Jones, Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Ms. Miller is excused,
Yes.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Val, Mrs.
Yes.
Val,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhoda Collins.
Yes.
The motion has passed.
Thank you. We have no minutes tonight, so we'll move into the superintendent's report. Dr. Adams.
So I have 2 updates to provide to the board. The first is the 2020-21 school year calendar. And I want to walk through, you have a copy of it. It will be on the website immediately after this meeting or by tomorrow morning, quite frankly, for the public to see and also to give feedback to. First and foremost, the overview is to present proposed key dates for the 2020-21 calendar to compare the 2019-20 calendar to the proposed 2020-21 calendar, and to obtain feedback from the board and the public for the 2020-21 calendar. I want to frame that this calendar was put together prior to the pandemic. And so while I am presenting this calendar for the board to approve as early as April 28th, as late as the May board meeting, I want to indicate that it is likely that the calendar might change based upon what's occurring. The start of the school year for the 2019-20 school year, I am recommending recommending a August 5th date. Start of the the school year calendar for 10-month employees. Last year was August 5th. There are 2 options available to the board. Option 1A and 2A, July 23rd or July 30th for 10-month employees to come back. Start of the school year for students. There's last year of the current year we're in, August the 13th. I am recommending the possibility of August the 4th or August the 11th. Start of winter break starting on December 23rd is what it was currently this year. The calendar projections are, I'm proposing December 21st for both of those options. The last day of winter break would be January 3rd for the current calendar that we're in now. For the next year's calendar 2021, whether that's option A or option 1A or option 2A, will be January 1st. The length of the winter break, currently for this year, past winter break was 10 work days, 14 calendar days. We'll be recommending 10 work days, 15 calendar days, 10 work days, 15 calendar days, whether it's option 1 or option 2. Where it says summer school, I'm going to change that. Summer school has not been canceled. It's some new information coming from the state. We're still getting new information around summer school. And so summer school will likely take place. I just don't have enough information right now to tell you when it might be. Option 1 and option 1A and option 2A, that's going to change. So the dates you see for summer school are going to come on the table, because it is highly unlikely after the pandemic that we will have a May time or a June summer school. And so I'm taking this off the calendar right now, basically because this calendar was done prior to the pandemic. The next items, if you mind turning, you can see what other districts have done, and all of these districts accepted their calendar, approved their calendar much earlier than we are bringing ours. And I'll reference why we are bringing ours so late. If you look at the proposed option 1 in red and purple, I would be recommending a start day as early as August the 4th for option 1. Option 2 would be August the 11th. The winter break times you can see are the same. The school resuming, resumes after winter break here. Spring break being the same, and an end date of 5/12 or 5/19. That's significant because it would be the intent, based upon information I'm getting, that we would likely be able to start summer school early next year in light of the fact that we're going to be impacted by what's occurring right now. All of the calendars that you see here were approved prior to the closure of school, the first time, the second time, and the third time. The next timeline, if you will. I won't read all of this to you, but beginning, we got feedback from the union in October, got members working with our team on December 2nd, December 12th. We also received feedback from the calendar from Local 420 and the team that was in place. We communicated with Mr. Dorsey at the state level to talk about the possibility of altering the calendar, because as you know, in the city of St. Louis, because they're charter schools are not impacted by the new law that requires that schools start no earlier than August the 24th. So we had some conversation with the state relative to that. They presented the calendar on the 8th for feedback. We also, Local 420 provided another meeting on February the 3rd. We went to DESE with an appeal. That appeal was heard on Wednesday, March 11th. By a 6-2 vote, the appeal was denied, which meant that the August 24th date is the date that all districts have to follow, irrespective of the fact that they are in a city with charter schools. That would be Kansas City and St. Louis at this point in time. What I'm presenting to you at this point in time is the calendar. And so what the board has is two options. And you receive both of the calendar. I look at August the 4th and an option to look at August the 11th as the beginning start date for the district. That is an important, that is much earlier than we normally would do, but in light of the fact that we are in a pandemic and I'm looking to try to get kids back in school as early as possible, those are the dates that I'm looking at to probably start early. There's some discussion taking place at the state level that the state may allow some flexibility around the August 24th date. That's not confirmed at this point in time. That is a possibility. Even with me providing you this calendar, I may come back at a later time, depending upon new information that I might obtain, and make some adjustment. In addition to that, because there is a possibility of having summer school this year, we may start summer school as late as July. We may even look at summer school as an August date. And I know I'm giving a lot of mights and ifs only because the nature of where we are this year is totally different than any year that we've ever been in. And I want to try to provide some flexibility to the staff as well as to ourselves in terms of what we might do or may not do. So you know today, I'm recommending an August 4th or August 11th day for the beginning of the school year. That might change depending upon what happens with the pandemic and when the state or the city or nationally, when we might re-engage again with allowing schools to be put in place. So that's the information I have right now. I know it's a lot of ifs and buts. I need to get a calendar out there to give feedback from the public and also so we can plan. The last page talks about next steps. And I will be asking the board on the 12th to approve this calendar. Again, I may be coming back with new information on the 28th in our work session, but at this point in time, I will be asking the board to look at August the 4th, August 11th to start the school year. Quite frankly, much earlier than we ever have done before, but in light of the fact that students have been out of school, obviously still engaged in academic pursuits with our academic learning plan, but still not in school. And so if we're able to start early, I want to try to start as early as possible for two reasons. Number one, it gets kids back in school as early as possible, and at the end of the year, we have the opportunity to start summer school early. I'll take any kind of feedback from the board at this point in time.
So I had a question surrounding, I guess, the schedule. I know everyone is kind of stressed out about graduation right now and ceremonies not happening. Is there any way to maybe work that into a summer school type schedule? I guess so those kids could still be able to celebrate their accomplishments.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be covering that in the pandemic update. Yes, ma'am. I will.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So Dr. Adams, one thing I noticed that I really appreciate is, give me 1 second. Okay, so one thing I really appreciate is that I noticed that the change was made to have Election Day be a day off of school for students and turn it into a PD day. I think that is a really great idea, because I know we've heard from a number of parent PTO groups and other parents that that really stressed on the school site to have it open for Election Day, and with it being a presidential election, I think that was a really smart move.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, obviously the calendar, sorry. Obviously the calendar is going to be put on the website tonight, and the idea is that the calendar will be, we'll get feedback from staff and from parents around the date. I want to be really clear. This date might change depending upon what kind of information I get from the state over the next 2 weeks, but the August 4th date is what I'm looking at. If the state policy, if the state doesn't change the August 24th date, this will come at a financial impact to the district, because we will be starting school before the calendar date that the governor put in place. I do think there'll be some wiggle room around that, but there will be a cost, quite frankly, for us to start earlier than everyone else in the state, at least in the public school. In the charter school world, they can start whenever they want to start. Hearing no questions, I'll go to the pandemic update. What you have before you is an update in red of those items that we updated. So blue will be the information you received at the last work session. And what I will try to do is not read all 26 of these pages to you, but obviously to highlight those outstanding issues or questions that the president had or other members had as it relates to this particular document. In the first section of the academic department, what I will highlight is all teachers have created Microsoft Teams for their classes at this time for virtual learning, which began on the 6th. So all teachers have transitioned to the Microsoft Teams, where students can go on and have conversations or feedback to be taught. So that has taken place. There were several questions, and questions are in 1 through 5, and I will kind of read through those quickly. How is the district, not individual schools, communicating with families to ensure consistency and clear information? Websites, social media, robocalls, Let's Talk, hotlines, ongoing calls and scripts, frequently asked questions, media interviews and updates. Obviously, our virtual learning plan is being printed in the St. Louis American, which will go out on Thursday. So we will have a full page spread in the St. Louis American around our virtual learning plan this on the 8th. It will be in all the Americans. Number two, specifically, how is the district explaining technology distribution, grading policy, and expectations for virtual learning with families and families who have multiple schools? How is the district ensuring that information is not contradictory or confusing? As I said before, it is confusing in some ways because families are coming from different angles. But what we are doing is we have provided what to expect with virtual learning, grading expectations by grade level, supporting virtual learning, what families can expect from the teacher, what families can do to support their children from home. We have a number of different communication pieces out there to try to get information to families, but I don't want to give you the impression that it's perfect. It depends where parents are in terms of understanding technology and their level of engagement around it. It's really depends upon a lot of different factors, but we are making every attempt to communicate as in many ways as we can to families. How is the district supporting students who are currently applying for college? Every high school has a college advisor who works with their school seniors, and they'll continue to do so virtually. The Office of College and Career Readiness continues to use trackers to see where students are. Several college advisors have set up team sites as well. Guidance counselors are also supporting this effort. They keep track of 4-year college bound, 2-year college bound, military bound, and job and career bound. The foundation has also extended their deadline to the 30th for any kind of scholarships. And so there are a number of different things that we're trying to do to try to make sure that we're connecting with every single kid at the high school level, especially those who are looking to go to college. The registration process for the 2020-21 school year, students are going to be rolled over to be assigned to the school last attended at the end of the 1920 school year. Transition grade levels will go to the neighborhood assigned school unless they've applied for a magnet school, and new students to SLPS will be referred to enroll at the assigned neighborhood schools when staff returns, or if not, they'll be able to do it online or come to central office as well. A lot just depends upon when we will be allowed to get back in the building and the stay-at-home order is reduced. How is the district communicating this process to families since much of the usual process takes place by individual schools? Communication will be placed at information, will be placed as information becomes available. And we're doing Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. All of the phone calls of schools have been rolled over to principals. And so principals are actually answering their cell phone as if they were in their school to try to address any concerns that parents have. We're using the SLPS TV as well as door hangers as well. Are there any different details for gifted or magnet enrolled students? Recruiters have begun calling internal and external students. So those students who are in the district and not in the district, anticipating there will be COVID-related questions. We have prepared an FAQ for their use. On the area of gifted, we obviously can't test students for gifted at this point in time, and the experts indicate that it would be not appropriate to test students with masks on. And so at this point in time, we're not testing any student for gifted education. We are waiting to get more information, and we will determine how best to provide students with testing who are waiting to be tested for the gifted schools. For the magnet school process, we have several people who are working to get kids into magnet schools, with the exception, obviously, of the students who have to take the gifted test. But they have been working over the last 2 weeks, Mr. Kruger, Wallace, as well as the entire recruitment team, to identify kids and get kids in schools and also send information to them. They can't obviously knock on people's doors if they've done in the past, but they're all working electronically and other ways to try to get information to students. I'll stop here and pause because I'll take any kind of questions you might have about anything I just covered.
Dr. Adams, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how will this affect scholarships and grants? I know you talked about the St. Louis Public School Foundation, but other than that, for some of our students, they're going to really have a serious hardship because parents are out of work and their financial situation has seriously changed. Their whole life has changed. And so I'm wondering what other agencies will come into play to help the students get back into school, because a lot of our students are going to come back to school and they're going to need everything.
We do have several partners who are willing to work with us on kids coming back to the K-12 arena. We have not engaged any of them right now. Everyone, quite frankly, Ms. Jones, has been focused on the food piece. And obviously that's a major piece. A lot of entities are coming to us and asking us about materials and money and that kind of stuff. For the college piece, it is my understanding, and Mr. Lane covered this at the last meeting, and he could kind of reiterate that again. The universities where kids are going to be going, a lot of extensions have been put in place, and the scholarship offices in those places are looking to address the needs of kids who might be accepted or kids who have already accepted. And so Mr. Lane might want to speak to that a little bit more. I know he's spends a little bit more time in that space than I do. And I could get you some feedback from Mrs. Dr. Bender, who is in this space with us. But at this point in time, frankly, the focus and it becomes to master hierarchy of needs, meaning what kids need first. Right now, it's about food and shelter. That's what people are really working to assist us on. Once kids get back into possibly coming back to school, there are a number of different entities. I can name one, the National Jewish Women, who contacted me today, and other entities are willing to step up and assist. But at this point in time, I don't have a list of those that I can provide to you.
Okay, this is my last question. So one last thing that I really believe that they're going to need is some serious emotional support, because it's going to be a whole new world when they come back. I mean, kids love to hug and touch one another, and I'm sure things are not going to be the same when they come back to school. So, I mean, what are we going to have in place to help them emotionally when they get to the door?
I think that's a great question, Ms. Jones. I don't have an answer for you, however, only because I don't know what coming back to school will look like. I don't know if it's going to mean that students will have to be tested. I don't know if there's so many factors that from that national level, as I read and watch the news every single day, I don't know what coming back to school looks like. I don't know that we're going to be back in classrooms with 15 kids or 20 kids or 10 kids, or if teachers will have to wear masks or kids are going to have to wear masks. I don't know. And so I do think that we will be prepared once we know what the rules of engagement are. But to be honest with you, I have no idea right now what coming back to school looks like, or really what engaging our community looks like moving forward. I just don't have I don't have a clue right now, as the powers that be at the national and local level are deciding what this looks like.
I understand. Thank you so much.
I can indicate to you that we will be ready for whatever happens. I just don't know what it's going to look like. That's my only challenge.
All right. Thank you.
Dr. Adams, you mentioned that principals are taking calls from their schools, just from families. I know they're getting calls from students as well, about either not being able to get technology, whatever needs. I know special education is a big topic that a lot of principals are getting calls on. I guess my question is more, what more can we do around like support and morale of our principals? Because again, they don't have, I know that some other school districts are using technology that will allow like school secretaries and administrative assistants to be able to field calls and then pass those on, but I know that we are not doing that in our district. So principals, I know they have their reports that they have for network superintendents and district staff. But what more can we do to support them and keep their morale up and really attend to their needs? So I just have a feeling like they are being overwhelmed and run down, and not only do they have to take care of themselves, but also their school staff.
Excellent question. We did work with Local 420, and we are engaging our support staff, Mr. Lang, and they do have the ability to use Google and to take calls and to make calls as well. So we have extended, quite frankly, the number of persons who are supporting principals, whether that's assistant principals, secretaries, as well as other support staff. As a matter of fact, that's one of the obligations, quite frankly, now of the support staff to assist in that way. We are listening to them every single day. We have a team call with them, and we have tried to be as supportive as possible. Most principals are working from home, you might imagine, working from home. And so we're trying to accommodate as much as possible to try to, outside of them assisting on the technology distribution, for the most part, they are working either in their homes or working in their offices by themselves because of the social distancing piece. So I will take any kind of recommendations that anybody might have, but we have tried to provide as much support as we can to principals. And for what that means that we're asking other persons outside of the administrative level to provide support with phone calls and answering calls and calling to make sure where kids are as well.
Thank you. And this question is for Dorothy. Are we, because I don't want to go too far with my questions, but we have just stopped, or I guess Dr. Adams, because you kind of said we were stopping. We have stopped after the gifted section questions, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, and it may be easier for me to take questions as opposed to reading all of this document to you. I know you got it earlier today. I don't know how much you want me to cover. If there's a specific area, because I know all of it obviously won't be relevant to you. It is quite a bit, and I just didn't know how much you want and how much is this for the public as well to hear about the kind of updates, because they don't have privilege to this document.
Dr. Adams, I have a question. As
Yes,
it
ma'am.
relates to, I know that we're going through charter for our Wi-Fi hotspots, correct?
No, we're not going to charter.
Who are we going through?
Right now, it's starts with an S. I want to say the name.
Spectrum. No, that's the same thing as charter.
Not Spectrum. Oh gosh, what's the phone company that starts with an S?
Sprint?
Sprint. I'm sorry. Thank you, Sprint. Yes, ma'am. Sprint.
Okay, how is that going? Because I know that with charter, if a parent had a bill and they can't pay the bill, then they are not able to take advantage of the free services that they may be offering for the students right now. So is that the same case with Sprint, or are they automatically, if you have students in SOPS, disregarding the fact that you were once a customer and you may owe money?
So students are not being charged for the hotspots. We are. So we are providing students hotspots as well as an iPad if they need or want one. So there's no charge at all to families who indicate that they need it. There are about 10 to 14,000 surveys that have been done. Of those surveys that have been done, about 22% are saying they need a hotspot. We're distributing about 5,000 hotspots and iPads at this point in time. All schools have been covered with the exception of about 20 schools. Those schools are ASM, Buda, Bush, Carnahan, Central, Cleveland, Collegiate, Compton Blue, Dewey, Gateway, Nord, Mellifont, Mason, McKinley, Malampy, NCA at Roosevelt, NCA, Roosevelt, Walbridge, and Warner. It is my intent to try to get to everybody by the middle of next week. That will be the first round. There'll be a second round. Families are also still filling out after that point in time. So we tried to cover North St. Louis schools first, obviously understanding and recognizing there was a great need there. But at this point in time, to answer your question, ultimately, there's no cost at all for anybody who said they need one. We have 4,000 hotspots. We distributed about 2,100 right now, and we expect to distribute the rest of them over the next week and a half.
So the hotspots come with the laptops or the iPads that the students are getting?
The iPads are separate than the hotspots. So they get an iPad and then they get a that they need it. If they already have internet connection, they just get the iPad. Many families say, I have everything I need. I don't need anything. And at this point in time, it looks like about 12 to 14,000 indicating they need some kind of technology support.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Adams.
And it is a slow process and we are working through it because obviously the social distancing piece, I can have 500 people working. I only have a skeletal crew working with masks on and gloves so we can protect families and employees.
To address the question that you asked, Dr. Adams, in my opinion, I think it would understand that the public doesn't have access to all the questions. I guess my recommendation would be to go through board questions, but I'll defer to the board to see what people want to do.
No, so this is up to the board. I have no problem going through everything.
Yes, I'd like for Dr. Adams to go through some of those questions as well, because a lot of people would like to know more.
All right.
So we'll just go section by section.
I'm sorry, say that again, Mr. Lay.
We'll just go section by section then.
Yes, sir. Yes. For teacher support and professional development, as I indicated earlier, 3 virtual learning modules have gone live as of April 8th. and staff will have to complete those three sessions of those three modules by April 24th. They have as much time now in April 24 to do so, and there'll be quote unquote tests that they take to do that. Academic instructional coaches are providing virtual lessons to teachers as well. And that's what AICs are doing to support teachers. On the ESOL side, support teachers, ESL teachers support teachers, the ESOL team support teachers in all district schools as they communicate with ESL families by personalized phone calls as well as a three-way phone calls. That's how they try to connect with them. On the special education side, IEPs are reconvening, and they're holding those meetings by Zoom and Microsoft Teams. We thought we were doing this up until the 22nd, but obviously we will be doing it for the rest of the year. All process coordinators have contacted families and school staff to ensure all families have been contacted to complete the technology survey. For iPads and hotspots, robocalls have been done as well. A guidance document is provided to the special education staff. That guidance document attaches emails on 41 with some important reminders, making sure that students are aligned to virtual, making sure that effective 4/20, if you have not already done so, please contact the parents of the students on your caseload. We know that all autistic teachers have submitted their forms, which means that they have done contacts. We will review the continuity of instruction form that was provided by DESE. The bottom line is we engaged in reevaluations for all of the IEPs. At this point in time, my data indicates about 200 special needs kids have not been contacted. We have contacted all the other families, and we're still working to do that because it is a process to email them, to call them. But the numbers I indicated from my principals at the elementary level, about 45 special needs kids have not been contacted. At the middle school level, 39 have not been contacted. At the high school level, 98. That was as of Monday. We are still in the process of contacting, calling, and email. So I have a detailed account of every single kid that has not been contacted. That information is going to be turned over to Mr. Brown, the Student Support Services, on Thursday, with them doing a deep dive to try to make sure we contact every single kid. There were 4 questions that the President asked. Has any additional guidance been issued by the federal government or state government? Yes, both the state and federal government have provided instructions to local LEAs regarding service provisions for students with disabilities, and we have put all of those in place. How is the district meeting the academic and support needs of special education students? I think I covered that earlier with the documents and the support that's taking place. How is the IEP compliance being monitored? I indicated we are doing Zoom meetings as well as the process coordinators reaching out and working to contact every kid. How is the district working with its vendors to ensure compliance with federal and state laws? Those vendors right now are Logos, Annie Malone, Great Circle, and any supplemental services have been advised the initial date to resume services, and they have. And we have reviewed their documents, and they are actually at this point in time providing online support to students who are already in those particular programs, similar to what we are doing, and are being reimbursed or being paid for those services. We have approved their contracts to do so. We have reviewed to make sure that the safety concerns are put in place. But those are our special education vendors right now, and they are providing services to families that they were providing services to pre the stay-at-home order. Any questions around special education? The next item is a technology update around technology. To date, we have about 14,000 surveys. We unloaded about 5,000 iPads that Apple delivered after the pandemic took place, because we had ordered them before. We have an additional 3,000 that are on order, so we expect to get about 8,000. I want to be clear that these 8,000 are not being distributed. What's being distributed are the iPads that were already in schools. We went to take all of the iPads out of schools, and those are the iPads that are being distributed because those iPads already had apps on them and all of those other kinds of things. And the new iPads that we're getting will be used for next school year because we believe we have enough iPads based on what's already in stock to provide to all families. We received 2,000 hotspots from Sprint. We ordered an additional 2,000. We got that order in on Monday, and we have to set those up as well. We also received and unloaded about 1,700 laptops for teachers for next year, anticipating about 600 more. So teachers have laptops right now. We plan on giving teachers new iPads. I'm sorry, not new iPads, new laptops next year. Those have come in. This is the time that they would never. So the team is not only giving out, but they're also receiving tons of equipment as it comes in, because this was the time period that they were coming in. We do have 75 of the 1,800 mobile hotspots from AT&T. We're still waiting on the other 1,725. We accepted, and we, at this point in time, we have printed 1.6 million copies of paper packets for home distribution for the next time period, which is now. 3,451 packets were picked up as of the 13th. As of yesterday at 11 o'clock, 2,400 packets have been picked up from families. So for the first round, 3,451. As of yesterday, about 2,400 have been picked up from our food sites where families are coming to pick up food and pick up those packets. So not only are we doing the technology, we also have the paper and pencil packet for families to pick up as well. Questions that the members asked: how many surveys were completed? About 1,400 and distributed about 9,765. The reason why is the details of the survey take some time is because sometimes people are doing the surveys 2 or 3 or 4 times with the belief that that will move them up the line. In addition to that, we have charter school kids who are applying, and we also have kids outside the county. I think the last numbers I looked at were around 200 persons outside the city who say, yes, I want an iPad, I want a hotspot. We have to go through and make sure that there's students in our district before we even, and so we're sending back telling them, no, you're not a student of SLPS, you cannot receive one. How many iPads have been given out? It says approximately how many iPads do we have to give out? About 12,000, as I indicated. Approximately how many hotspots do we have to give out? I think I've already covered that, about 4,000. Approximately how many iPads have been distributed? About 3,600 right now, although about 5,400 have been prepared. And I'll just give you an update.
So the last time we spoke, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The last time we spoke on March 31st, I think it was mentioned that there was kind of a high demand nationally and a shortage of that equipment. Is that being met, or are we still, I mean, I guess kind of what does the landscape look like supply and demand wise?
If we go by the survey data, we have enough to provide to everybody right now. But we do have another order to try to get another 2,000. We just want to be on the safe side. My understanding is we don't get charged for them unless we start using them. And so at this point in time, we have 4,000. We think that will cover the demand that's out there.
Okay, so we're not having problems obtaining those devices as long as we're ordering them, the orders are coming in within a reasonable amount of time?
We do have a problem. We have been fortunate to reach out to our connections to get the 4,000. Many school districts don't have that. And quite frankly, others around the city charters have asked if we could support them in any way, shape, or form. At this point in time, there are difficult times. Yes, we're able to find one of the entities that were able to support us, and Sprint was able to do that. The other ones are indicating we won't get them until June. We won't get them for 3 months, but we have been getting them like on every 3 days, it looks like.
Great, thank you.
The question is, how is the family notified that the device is ready for pickup? They fill out the tech survey. Once they fill out the tech survey, they get a document sign that says that they are willing to complete the contract and be responsible for the equipment. They get an email back to say when to pick up the equipment and where to pick up the equipment. That takes a little while. We are not touching anything right now until the 20th because we're backed up and we need to catch up. And so we are giving out equipment up until Friday, but anybody who's just recently sent out something in the last week, we have to catch up to those 3,000 to 4,000 who just filled out new information. And on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, we should be prepared to give out some equipment to them. Again, we're working with a skeletal crew because we have to worry about the social distancing, and we have to make sure that we are having enough PPE equipment to give out the equipment hand to hand or hand to car. So it is not like I have 1,000 people helping. I might have a crew of anywhere from 5 to 10 or 15 people, depending upon the day that we do it, because we want to try to protect as many people as possible. So our most difficult issue right now is having enough hotspots, and we think we have enough at this point in time based upon the data that we have. Any questions around the technology piece? I know it's a moving target. Some of you may be getting calls about, I waited a week for it. Some of you may not be getting calls. It is a process and we are working through it. 1,840 people indicated they were picking up laptops from this building over the last 7 days. 7 days out, 385 had not picked up the iPad or the hotspot for whatever reason. And so we have to take those back and reissue those to new people. Because some people are filling out the information initially and then finding out that, no, I don't think I need one at this point in time. And so it's a process. We prepare them. People expect to pick them up. Sometimes they don't pick them up for whatever reason, and then we reissue them again. So it is an ongoing process just to make this work.
Dr. Adams, in this section, so question number 2, it says, and based on what you said 12,000 is how many we have to give out, and that includes schools that currently have iPads.
So what we're doing, and I'll give you an example. Patrick Henry, let's say for all of their kids, pre-K, first, second, and third, and fourth, I think it goes up that high. We went to their buildings, took all of the iPads out of their buildings, went into closets, the teachers' closets, took the iPads out of their buildings, and revisioned the iPads, re-engaged the iPads, put a different tag on the iPads, and those are the iPads that are being distributed to the community.
So I know that we have some schools that are one-to-one schools in terms of technology. Have they given out those iPads then? Or do they have to go through the same process? Or did you recommission those iPads?
All iPads are being recommissioned. The reason, quite frankly, Mr. Lang, is the iPads that are in school buildings right now were never established or set up to give out to kids. And so we have to retag and revision them and give them out and have parents sign a contract, because the one-to-one were in the classroom only. No one took any iPads or technology home last year or this year. Now this is the first time that we are actually giving an iPad to a kid to take home, to use at home with technology, with the internet that they have at home or with a hotspot that we're giving them. We took them out of all of North St. Louis schools first, such that we could give them back out. We'll be going to South St. Louis schools to take them out of buildings and do the same thing, especially in the fact that we will not be going back to those schools. The other piece is we got a new shipment of 8,000 or 5,000 so far, and another 3,000 are coming. We wanted the brand new equipment to be available to kids next year, as opposed to current equipment that is being used or has been used to go out to families right now.
Okay. And then additionally with that, so you said April 20th is when when the district will begin reassessing or taking a look again at those applications and stuff. So that's 7 days from now. So how much is there a contingency plan? Because I feel like in these times, a week of education that students might be missing out on because they don't have the technology. And that's 7 days from now. And these are students who already don't have the technology as well. So they've already been going without.
A point well taken. So Mr. Lang and board, I am juggling safety with access. The 2,451 worksheets are out there so kids can still work on those in the meantime. Remember, we just went to the online learning on April the 6th, and there is no time period for them to finish it. So they can go online. If they get it Monday, they can go back and catch up, because we're only giving them enough work to do 2 hours of work a day. I would love to bring in 100 people, but I can't do that. And so it is a challenge, and I weigh it heavily. And I clearly understand the urgency to try to get technology in front of kids, but I have to weigh that with the notion of safety. And so I would ask the board patience, and the community's patience as we go through trying to make this work. No excuses here. I'm owning the fact that we are moving slowly but deliberately so that we can hold people accountable for getting the technology. And I also could try to make sure that the team that I have working can exercise its social. So I'll give you an update after tomorrow. Mr. Lang, to see what we can do to try to expedite reaching out to families as much as we can. But we have 3,000 persons since the last time, I want to say since last Friday, who went online and did the technology survey. What I'm saying to you is that 3,000 persons, they won't get, the earliest I could possibly get back to them is on Monday. My hope is to try to get it done earlier, but I want to be as honest as I can. It is unlikely that that's going to happen, but it is likely that starting Monday, they will be able to pick up their equipment and move from that point in time. That's a long answer to say, I'm trying my best.
Okay, and my last question just around equity. So I know that there are cases where we might have student households, because I know that parents have to sign, or parent guardian has to sign off. We might have households where there might not be a responsible adult in the household. Is there another way for students to be able to, again, access technology or be able to sign that off themselves if we know that, yes, as a student who goes to this school, but for whatever reasons in their household might not feel comfortable going to a parent or might not have a parent guardian that is there and might not want to expose their home situation, but still need an education?
So we are allowing high school students to sign off themselves. So high school students can fill it out themselves and fill and return information to us. In addition to that, we have principals and teachers and counselors calling kids and speaking to them personally and actually filling out the form for them and turning in the form for them. So we started that a week ago. That's why we're really, quite frankly, up to 1,400, because we are actually filling out the form for students when we find out, to your point, that some of the challenges are there. And our homeless office doing the same thing. They have made, at this point in time, I want to say they have made over 600 contacts to families. And I have the actual, I thought I had the actual number in front of me right here, but they've made about 600 contacts to families to get them the information that they need to have. So yeah, we are allowing families to do it, other persons to do it, not just the parent. As a matter of fact, on the home side, 857 social work contacts and 680 from the students in transition office. And we are working with them around food, meals, hygiene, supplies, household supplies, gift certificates, and gift cards, and also assisting them around getting the technology.
Okay, and I apologize, I do have one more question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that there are families or students that are applying multiple times because they think it's going to move them up in the queue. But I've also heard that they're not hearing back, and I understand that there's a queue. But if they're not getting anything to say like, okay, we've received it and it's complete, or anything like that, I feel like they are going to apply multiple times. So if they're getting no communication about, did I complete it right? Am I in queue? Am I in a waiting line? Because I'm hearing that they're not receiving anything. I feel like that's only going to exacerbate the problem of we're getting all of these repeat applications. So is there a way that families, students can contact someone to figure out if they're, to get any communication about whether their application is okay, or they're in the queue, or they're waiting, or be patient or something?
So you are correct. I've gotten the same concern or complaint, and I don't want to call it a complaint, but a concern. And so if a family is in one of these schools, AESM, Buda, Bush, Carnahan, Central, Cleveland, Collegiate, Compton, Drew, Dewey, Gateway, Kennard, Mellancrot, Mason, McKinley, Malampy, NCA, Roosevelt, Walbridge, or Warner, you are correct. They are likely not to have received a response that says when you can come pick up your equipment. If you are one of the schools, any other school, you've gotten some kind of response if you turned it in prior to last Thursday. If you turned it in after last Thursday, you are correct. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and today, they have not gotten a response, because that's the 3,000 that have come in. I will work with the technology to see what we can do to try to expedite some kind of communication, Mr. Lang. But again, I don't want to give any kind of excuses. I want to be really diligent about framing what the expectations are and what we have the capacity to do right now. But I will try to get your response after talking to my team tomorrow morning to see if there's any other way we can at least let parents know who've turned in something. Hey, we got it. It's going to take 3 or 4 days. We acknowledge that we received it. Please wait until X, Y. I think it's a legitimate concern, and I'll bring it back to the team.
Dr. Adams, I have a question regarding parents who may not have transportation to come in and pick up the technology. Is there any provision possible for them?
Yes, ma'am. I've reached out to the foundation, and the foundation is working with me after we get past this week to look at one of the transportation companies to bring the actual iPad to the family's home after they fill out the technology survey. So we have had some conversations with Lyft and Uber, and we've also had some conversations with 2 other companies that after we get past this first round, next Tuesday or Wednesday, it is likely that some of those who have indicated that they don't have transportation, we will contract through the foundation with those companies to drop off the technology to somebody's home and have them acknowledge that they received it.
Thank you.
I had a follow-up question on the number of devices being ordered. So it seems like we're going to maybe have an excess of technology. Do we have some plan to perhaps improve access in the classroom going into the next school year, difference in curriculum? Are we going to have to offload those as excess, or can we keep that in the budget? I'm just curious if there's been any thought to what's going to happen to these devices and how we could leverage that for better classroom resources.
Yes, ma'am. We have thought about that. We have also thought about the notion that this is the first time that we'll be distributing 10,000 iPads, and what's our ability to retrieve all of those iPads back and then to use them in a way that would be productive for our students' use next year. But yes, we have looked at the possibility of making what we do now a reality for students in the city of St. Louis. So yes, the 8,000 that we ordered were originally ordered to go into middle schools, because right now we're covering all elementary schools, but not middle schools. And so there is a possibility that I'll be coming back to the board with a challenge around how to use computers or technology by providing kids with an actual device for next school year, which we have not done in the past.
So for students with, I've received some calls for families who have had multiple students, and I think that you maybe addressed that with the list of schools that you just that you listed. But if they have multiple children in their home that attend SLPS, how are we handling devices for those kids? Are we making sure that every kid has a device, and it just may come in a different order? Maybe their sibling gets one first, depending on the school that they're at, or how are we being efficient and also cognizant of multifamily needs?
So at this point in time, for every 2 kids, there's 1 iPad that's issued. If you have 2 kids, you get 1. If you have 3 kids, you get 2. If you have 4 kids, you get 2. 5 kids, 3. So that's how we're doing it. And a hotspot can accommodate 10 kids. In that home, a hotspot can accommodate up to 10 people. I'll move on to the next section if no other questions. For assessments, we're working with ACT to reschedule district testing in the fall. Nothing different with student records, nothing different with research and that kind of stuff. For students in transition, I do want to kind of lift this up. We are still enrolling kids to foster care behavior assessments will be done this week. Dunbar students now placed in Riverview School District students who have been transitioning. For food supplies, food boxes to 5 families, 5 deliveries. Family of 5 at Adams Elementary that had a fire. 2 unaccompanied youth, students with children. Family of 6 unsheltered, we provided gift cards. Roosevelt family with food and other kind of stuff that you can see there. ESOL family, 4, we provided supplies as well. We process our transportation bills. We continue to provide have communication through email and telephone calls. I indicated to you earlier that the Students Transition Office has made 608 contacts, and our social workers have made 857 contacts. This Saturday, we had a Salvation Army providing delivery hot meals to the McKinney-Vento students who live in certain areas of the city, don't want to necessarily wear. Vouchers have also been provided. Meal giveaways on Saturday are indicated. And we are doing everything in our power to continue to provide support to those students who have been identified as homeless by the SIT office, the Students in Transition office, or social work office as well. And in terms of each social worker is creating a social work page for, on the individual school website. This page will include community resources. The social workers are also making contact with school staff to offer support and provide resources for any staff in need. The social workers are working a minimum of 4 hours per day to make themselves available for office hours to accommodate any kind of calls that might be coming in. The question that the board had, how many calls have received by social workers hotline as of this time that this document was put in place, which was Friday, 187. Are there trends in the nature of those calls? The vast majority of the calls were around technology, obviously reaffirming what the board said. 9 calls have been received for food distribution, 5 calls for SNAP benefits, 2 calls about magnet school applications, and 1 call about transcripts, 2 calls about enrollment. What type of follow-up do families receive after initial call is made? All callers are given information to resolve their issues or concerns. Luke Ruger, obviously for magnet school, one high school student, has been checking in on a regular basis often, and they're checking by text to report that this student is bored at home along as her dad is at work during the day. That's just some granularity of the kind of calls they're getting and how they're trying to respond. Any questions about the social work piece?
Can you give some, I guess, some context about what's the caseload of each social worker and how many do we have? How many, I mean, are they working with 100 kids or 10 families, or how busy are they essentially, and how close are we to meeting the needs of everyone that is in need of those services?
We don't have a social worker in every single building at this point in time. So whoever was in that school before, that is the social worker that was assigned. So the social worker is not picking up any more responsibility. If a social worker was at Adams Elementary School, that social worker supporting those families as they would if we were not in a stay-at-home modality. So it's the same social worker providing the same services to that particular school environment. I don't have off the top of my head what the ratio is. At this point in time, I can provide that to you, but obviously we don't have one in every single school.
I guess I'm wondering if there has been some increase in need. Students who previously didn't really need a social worker, maybe due to this pandemic, maybe they do now. So are our social workers being asked to take on more students or more cases, or is it about the same?
I could get you that information. I would suspect they're fielding more questions and calls than they've ever had before, only because of the nature of where things are. And I think to somebody's point, Mrs. Jones' point, quite frankly, Donna Jones' point, around the social emotional well-being of kids and what kind of concerns they may have. I can get some update from you around if they're getting more calls, or let me back up. They didn't get calls before because they were in the school buildings servicing kids. And so I can find out if they have a larger caseload, meaning are they servicing more kids now than they did before, which I think is your question. And my secretary is listening to the call and will make sure that I get an answer to you for that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to ask a question as well in regards to the great work that the social worker is doing. And also, I just want to compliment you, Dr. Adams, and the employees as well, because this is a very difficult time and they're doing a great job and this is very hard. But I would like to ask at this time that we consider requesting something of the governor from the state of Missouri, asking him to rescind a policy that they currently have with the SNAP program, where many of our families that receive free and reduced lunch, they cannot call in to a Snooks and place an order and have that food delivered to their home. There's a prohibition on that. And so if the governor would lift the prohibition, then a lot of our families that receive SNAP could get those groceries delivered to their home and wouldn't have to go through all the pain and agony of standing in line, in traffic, exposing themselves on the bus, having to walk, with groceries with their children to the grocery store. to try to receive groceries, even though we have the stay in place order. So I'm just really hoping that many of us that are listening would encourage the governor of the state of Missouri to lift this temporary prohibition against using SNAP to order food from places like Snooks, so that our families can have a safe way to receive food, and perhaps even use the military, the National Guard, to help deliver those foods, perhaps even from the schools to work with you, Dr. Adams, to help deliver those groceries to our families, because we have a list, the social workers have a list that they can use to do that with, which would make it easier and keep a lot of our families off the street. Because I noticed on Friday, when the Urban League gave the food away, that there were a lot of families out there with small children, and they were running up there to try to get groceries, some of them with no transportation. And it was heartbreaking to see that happen.
So I will
Thank
work. Thank you. No, thank you. I think it was an excellent question or point. I will work with Mr. Brown to get an update on that. I know that Desi had sent some information to us that we were responsible for giving letters to parents around SNAP. And so, because, and I may be wrong on this, but it's my understanding that if a family was coming to our school to get food, it was going to reduce their SNAP amount. And so I know there was some debate with the state and us around that piece. I don't know all of the details, but I'll get an update from Mr. Brown and obviously give you some feedback around what your recommendation is, and also give you the update that we have around SNAP as well, because I know we have been engaged in some stuff around SNAP as well.
Thank you.
Next item is full service schools. I don't think there's much really here other than those full service schools. We're preparing weekly food markets, paying bills. Also, that's Oak Hill Mobile Market, Walbridge Mobile Market as well. We're still working to do that. I think 223 families went to Walbridge and 149 families went to Oak Hill, and we're continuing those mobile food markets on the two after school full service schools. In terms of health services, we are doing screenings inside this building. Anytime someone comes in this building, we're taking their temperature. We are making sure that they have PPEs on. We're asking 3 key questions to make sure that they have not been around anybody. And we are also reviewing updates with the city health department. At this point in time, to my knowledge, we have at least 11 persons who have the COVID-19 virus that are district employees. As I've shared with you by email, there has been 1 death of an employee who has been identified with the COVID virus. We have a number of persons who have been hospitalized, but we have 11, to my understanding right now, that have been impacted with health concerns in this space. I would suspect there are more, because the city of St. Louis only provides us the information for persons in the city. Obviously, we have persons who live in the county, but we don't get that county information. We only get the city information if they live in the city of St. Louis. I think that's all I can cover on that side. I'll go to the operations side at this point in time, because I think there's a lot here to walk through. Custodians are still continuing to work. We have been providing them with PPE equipment as necessary. And that's basically a mask. We have reduced the number of work orders that we had. We reduced the number of orders that we had, and also the number of the all maintenance orders have been reduced by the fact that persons have been working. The maintenance team has been working with the appropriate equipment. Contractors have been working as well, placing carpet, painting, roofing, all of those kinds of things that we have done in the past. The total meal counts are increasing daily. We assisted KIP because they're our vendor. We provided 750 breakfast and lunches. 27 schools are still involved in the meal program. I'll skip this section right here because I think I'm going to cover it a little bit later on. We also writing for grants that are available as well to cover some of the costs, $1,000 grants that we're writing as well. There were some questions that were asked: how many meals have been distributed per school? If you look at the second page of the document, page 15, you can see that the last since the last time we reported, there have been 13,292 meals that have been provided and 801 adult breakfast and lunch meals. That's up from about 5,500 for the 5 days that we did initially. So that's double over a 9-day period of time. We are looking at implementing an emergency response plan for children, and that's a 7-day meal plan. And I'll walk through that right now because I think it's important. That would begin on page 17 for you. The goal of transitioning to the meal distribution 1 day a week is to limit some person-to-person contact for our families and staff. This 1-day delivery system will reduce potential exposure of COVID-19. Meal kits will be assembled at 22 feeding sites. We're looking to reduce 4 feeding sites. 4 feeding sites we're looking to reduce from 5, are Fanning, Jefferson, Honohan, Shaw, and Wilkerson, because the numbers have been extremely low in those sites. But we are looking to do 22 sites beginning Friday. What would that mean? It will mean that we will put together 7 days of food, and that will start on the 17th. Families will be able to pick up 7 days of food. I provided you some pictures and also what the food will look like on page 19. The meal kits will be distributed at the sites on Friday from 8 until 12. The staff will be there from 7 until 1. What does a breakfast look like? It looks like 1 whole grain muffin, Trick cereal, bagels, cinnamon toast crunch, a nut grain bar, apple cinnamon muffin, cereal again. They will also get burgers for the week and fresh broccoli, chicken patties, nuggets, turkey and cheese wraps for the week. And they will, instead of giving 14 1/2 cartons of milk, they'll get a whole gallon of milk. And that will be for the entire week. They will pick that up on a Friday, and they'll come back the following Friday. They have 3 or 4 children, they'll get 4 bags of the food. On page 21, I've provided you pictures of what it looks like, so you can actually see what the bags look like and what's going to go in the bags for that entire week for families. This is a safety issue as well as a convenience issue, because families have to find a way 5 days a week, 3 days a week to come to the site, pick up food, go back home. If we provide it to them for the entire week, we're cutting down the exposure of security and families, and we're also providing convenience, I believe, such that families have the food at home that they can prepare themselves for their family members for the entire week. We also will be feeding adults as well. As I told you before, we have a philanthropic person who is covering the cost of that as well. So I didn't want to read all of these pages, but I do want to announce the fact that we are looking to go to a 7-day meal operation plan starting on this Friday in 22 sites and reducing 4 sites because those site numbers have been really, really low. And if you look on page 15, you can look at the numbers of Fanning for those 8 days of Fanning, 257. You can look and see the numbers for the other 4 sites to see 187 at one of the sites, 159 at one of the sites, but those numbers are relatively low. And so we're looking to go to sites that have a lot more kids and families that we can accommodate and reduce this notion of social distancing. Any questions about this? Because I know it's brand new. The board is getting it for the first time. I received it on yesterday because we were able to work out some details. 1 or 2 charters are looking at 5 days, but this will be the first 7-day plan that I am aware of.
I have a question, Dr. Adams.
Yes, ma'am.
If the sites see an increase, so the ones that are currently at low amounts, if they experience an increase in the next few weeks, will we go back to the regular schedule that we had?
So it is my intent starting after Friday to close down those sites, Ms. Jones, unless I see a big uptick over the data for this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I would say no. But again, I want to look at the data to try to make a decision on, but the numbers are really small in those sites. I think in some cases you look at the daily account, and I'll just use Fanning as an example, 17, 12, 13, 25, 39, 25, 35, and 50 was the highest number, and that was on the 8th and the 9th. So I want to try to be as supportive as possible. Roosevelt, 23, 26, 16, 25, 9, 18, 34, 13. Low numbers compared to other sites that might have Walbridge, 105, 75, 118, 116. We're going to try to shift those families that are coming to those low sites to other places. So I will look at it, Ms. Jones. I don't want to say yes or no yet until I have a conversation with the team. If you're asking me to look at it closely again, I don't have a problem going back and doing so.
Okay, my last question, Dr. Adams, is so for all the sites, how are we managing how much food is left over after we develop the packets or kits per day for the families to make sure that we aren't wasting food or?
First Student is our vendor. They manage that piece. We don't get the details of it. They know what the law requires in terms of disposing food and those kinds of things. We don't touch that at all. I don't know the details, to be frankly, and honestly with you, it would be the same thing that we would do if we were at one of our buildings serving food on a regular basis. So I don't know the details, to be honest with you, in terms of what the requirements are for them in terms of disposing food or refreezing food and those kinds of things. I could get you what the law says in that space, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Adams.
You're welcome.
Just a point of clarification regarding the 7-day packets. Is it one specific day that everyone has to come and get their food, or will it be operational for 5 days or 7 days? People can come and get their 7 days worth of food. I guess I'm just concerned about the scheduling and people who have strange work schedules and the people who are essential employees that might not have 9 to 5 regular jobs or so just a clarification on how often that's available and what times.
At this point in time, it's exclusively on Friday. Is what we're looking at. Again, if the board has a recommendation around something else, I'll look at it. But at this point in time, it was exclusively on Friday. We have not surveyed families to see if one day is a better day than the other. Quite frankly, I don't know, but we were looking at Friday because it gets them through the weekend and then obviously the 5 days of the week. So again, if the board has a question or concern they want us to go back and look at, we will gladly do so.
Dr. Adams, I just want to make sure that if we're going to make these changes, that we ensure to do our messaging correctly and using all outlets to ensure that people aren't showing up where people are not going to be with food on specific days. If we're going to stop it.
I have not done anything because I want to have a conversation with the board. What I said to my team is I feel comfortable that we should move forward, but I want to make sure that I give the board an opportunity to give feedback tonight, and we will start the social messaging and everything. Ms. Willis is listening to this call, and Ms. Abdel and Mr. Casey, and so they're all poised and ready to move forward after the call tonight to start doing exactly what you said, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Adams.
So with that food pickup, if a family, a student's family is not available on that Friday, would they be able to send a proxy, like a family member or neighbor to pick something up for them?
My understanding is the answer is yes. We've been very, very flexible. This is obviously a different kind of situation. We're not even saying Calvin Adams is coming to pick up food. We're just putting an X in a box to say that this food was given to a person. We don't even identify who the person is.
Great, thank you.
So two things I would have. So stemming off of Susan's point, just thinking about how we close down those sites. So even if one school and another school, or one site and another site are a mile apart, that even though they're a mile apart from each other, that could mean 1.5 miles to 2 miles of a walk for one particular student or family. But the second thing is, if I know the consideration is if we're having these things open or having the sites open daily, and there are low numbers, I think it might be a different consideration if they're only going to be open once or twice a week and they're low numbers. I feel like, well, if we're only opening it once or twice a week and there's still only 17 families, I feel like that might still be beneficial as opposed to the every day, 5 days a week, and there are only 17 families. That might be something to consider.
So if I hear correctly, at least 2 board members, and I suspect there's probably more, that you would like us to try to keep all sites open and look at what happens at least 1 or 2 weeks with the 7-day prep, 7-day meals at those low sites. Hearing the board correctly?
I think that should be considered along with the fact that we don't know how long, we're going to be, shut in our homes. And so with that being said, we don't know how many people are going to lose jobs over the next few weeks. And so we could really see more of an increase over the next couple of weeks because of what's happening. So I think it might be a bit premature to close down sites right now.
Point duly noted. I'll bring it back to the staff tomorrow and give the board an email update tomorrow.
But I have a question, Dr. Adams. In that instance, that we have more food prepared than we need for those sites, if you could please get that information from First Student to see if that is something that they could donate to, since we're not, doing names of people that are coming to pick up the food. We have a large homeless population in the city of St. Louis, to see if that food could be allocated to some specific central location for pickup or wherever they might be, to make sure that we're not wasting food, but also being purposeful in how we use the resources that we have.
I'll provide you an update tomorrow. Not a problem at all.
Thank you.
I'll move on to the next section if there are no questions. The safety and security were basically no changes in that space. Institutional advancement, basically indicating that the week of April 6th, they're creating messaging to support virtual learning and iPads. The St. Louis American indicated before with the insert radio, paid social media and cable TV. And there was some specific questions that I want to address around the SBS TV. Number one, they're facilitating live streaming similar to what we're doing tonight. They're also preparing to program as soon as available from teachers and other approved sources. The PBIS KTEC, there are 21 teachers right now that I know that are going online, preparing lessons that are going to be uploaded for PBS as well as for our television as well. So the Mr. Tom Booth is also posting videos provided by principals and teachers to the district website and to specific school sites, Facebook pages as needed. The two teams are also providing technical assistance to teachers who need assistance. The SLPS TV is creating opportunities in studio as needed for messaging and instruction. Presently, teachers are just getting settled into the new program launched this week. Mr. Booth is also creating video packages based on district news updates as it becomes available, and the SLPS TV will soon be accepting videos from teachers involved in the newly retooled Educator of the Year Virtual Awards program. The video will be made available to judges in the program since we can't do that online. I think that covers everything on the Office of Institutional Advancement. There was one other question asked, how are the year-end events being impacted? The Scholar Athletic Program was postponed. We will look for ways to bestow awards when school starts, and the Educator of the Year has gone to virtual because we are obviously, teachers will be able to upload their video and that video will be judged. We also are talking about, and I'll cover the graduation piece when I get to the last question, and anything that has to do with back to school is on hold because we don't know what back to school looks like or will look like. Financial update. Property and sales tax revenues are received monthly. Therefore, we have not received the March revenues received by April 20th to determine the potential 2020 impact. An alternative projection assumes about 50% of May's and June's revenues are received. As more information is received, I will provide the board some financial projections, but it's just really too early right now because it's a lagging indicator in terms of the finances. We have received guidance regarding the Medicaid reimbursement by Telemed. The 2020 summer school reimbursements for students in seat attendance. At the time that this was provided, that was the case, but at this point in time, we could actually do virtual summer school based on what the state has said to us. The new Medicare transportation reimbursement requires ridership logs that will be impossible, cheaper, difficult to obtain, therefore likely reducing our revenue by about $750,000 because obviously persons are not in seats riding on buses. The negotiation piece, you have it, I won't necessarily speak to it. All federal waivers are now allowing more carryover flexibility. So we do have some flexibility to roll over title dollars that wasn't there before. Delivers, we are giving the school closures to the end of the year. We're working on recommendations for how delivers to schools as well, and also any fees that might occur as a restocking. Substitutes are covered in closed session. I won't necessarily go through that again. There was some questions that were asked about who's going to get paid, who's not going to get paid. It is the intent to pay all teachers and all non-certs and those subs that are appropriately identified by the human resource officers. The cost for the district is about $22 million for that cost to pay everybody for the last month of this closing. The last thing, as I said before, I talked about the revenues in terms of that. Are there any questions around anything to do with finances? I think I tried to cover everything as much as the questions that were asked. We are concerned about what the impact might be, but obviously it's too early to determine exactly what it's going to be. I think the last update, quite frankly, is, and I won't read all of the HR stuff, but it kind of gives you some indication of what the HR is doing in terms of applications, resumes, pending information, and kind of walk you through all of the things that they have done or are doing as it relates to this in the document up front. I won't read all of it to you. The DocuSign Laserfish integration went live on April the 3rd. I know that one of the board members had a question around it. It was the update. It was the onboarding of it for the last year, and now it's live as of April the 3rd. The ER team is working on the following things. I don't want to read all of these. None of them are confidential, but I don't know that it makes sense to read what the ER team is working on. Again, I don't think it makes sense to read all of the stuff relative to absences, but 20 persons have requested family medical leave as a result of the COVID-19 virus. 5 ADAs, 14 return to work requests. You look at the unemployment claims at this point in time, we are not laying anybody off, so it's not an uptick in unemployment claims. These are the unemployment claims that we would normally get. That's my understanding. The HR, the ER issues in terms of grievances and those things, I won't go through all of those as well. Those are documents you can see. The remote processing implementations, we won't talk about all of these. The claims, the three claims you see, 10 403B requests, the child support enrollments, and the 20 invoices for benefits to vendors. All of those are data points that HR is working on and has been working on since the last time we had a conversation. The last I'll cover this item, I think Mrs. Vowles asked, what possibilities are being explored to honor high school graduations, primes, and all of those things? So for end of year activities, primes are canceled, but principals are considering rescheduling for the winter. So we are looking at some winter or fall balls to allow students who want to participate to participate. Most schools have participated in senior events already, ribbons and award days. So those kinds of things have, for the most part, are already taken place. We are looking to see how we can try to engage kids in these things if they have not already taken place. So we're looking at 4 or 5 things in terms of graduations. 1, virtual graduations. So we're looking at a template to give kids an opportunity to take pictures, for their diplomas to be delivered to them, for their cap and gowns to be delivered to them, for them to take a picture and to do some kind of virtual graduation. We are also looking to see how we can honor students in some way, shape, or form by putting their pictures in a newspaper, whether that's American or the St. Louis Post. So we're looking at incurring that cost such that students could be recognized in that way. We're looking at some separate programs. We're also looking to do anything that we could do online. We're looking at the possibility of drive-up graduations. I don't know what that looks like, but some states are looking at that. We're also looking at the possibility of having graduations on football fields such that they're 6 feet apart. So we're looking at that as a possibility as well. I don't know what that is going to look like, but that is something we are entertaining for schools that are small. A school like a Gateway, we couldn't do that, but a school like a I don't know, Roosevelt has a small senior class of maybe 70 kids. The idea of having them there, just the graduates, with us filming it live so that families could see it. We couldn't have people in the stands and that kind of stuff because that would be problematic. So we're looking at that as well. We're looking at doing anything we could do to stream online. When we talk about traditional graduations, if we could do something limiting tickets, such that there are a small number of tickets, and also looking to host in the fall or winter, even a summer graduation as well, or August graduation in a big venue like the Schaefer Center. And we're always also looking at the possibility, because some kids, to be honest with you, are not going to want to come back for graduation. We get that. But some kids will want to come back for graduation. And we might do all kids who want to participate in a quote unquote St. Louis public graduation at somewhere like the Schaefer Center or the Convention Center. Once we get past understanding what come back and normal really means. So principals are entertaining these things right now. We have a team of principals working collaboratively. I will have something probably much more concrete Friday of this week or early next week around which direction we're going in. But all of these are ideas that they have discussed that we're looking at. Some are going to be much more germane to a small class as opposed to a large class. A class like Gateway can't, because Gateway has 250 kids that graduate, so they couldn't do this. A small school like CSMB 40, they might could do on the field graduation in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. But we're going to try to find every avenue to try to accommodate kids as much as possible around the graduation piece. And these are our first thoughts collectively around some of those ideas. And if you've heard of any, we will take them.
So I guess my question earlier was really more about the calendar. When we're going to need to finalize the 2021 calendar, will we be able to put some of these graduations, as information becomes available, we'll be able to put those on the calendar and finalize and formalize that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
What we're looking to do is create a week where we could have the graduation. Since we don't have any idea what come back means, we may be looking at the first week in October for graduations for the 2019-20 school year, if anybody wants to come back that week for any kind of graduation. But again, this will be driven by kids, determining if they want to come back and participate. Some will be in college. We will try to do it on the weekend so we could try to accommodate them. But I just don't know, Ms. Val, if we are ever going to be, at least as early as the fall, in a position where we could have 100 to 200 or 300 or 400 people collectively together again. I just don't know. I just have no idea.
So kind of like we're doing with the tech surveys, is there a possibility of kind of gauging students' interest in maybe wanting to come back, or what they might want, what they might envision their graduation looking like? Maybe there is no demand, or maybe there's a high demand, but it would be difficult to plan without getting their input.
I would think that the answer to the question is there's really high demand. We've been contacted a lot of different ways. But I do think it makes some sense for us to come up with some kind of survey, and I could get you some feedback on it. I know they're working on something. I just don't know the details of it. Dr. Gale and Dr. Kaysen, along with the 13 principals, are working feverishly around this topic once the decision was made last Thursday to close school for the rest of the year. So I'll give you some indication of where we are in that process by Friday.
Great, thank you.
Board, I think that covers everything that I have.
HR question, Dr. Adams.
So I just got to, let me just finish with Dr. Ms. Val. Yes, they are doing a survey. I just got an email that we are doing a survey, a text rather, that they are doing a survey right now. I'm sorry, Mr. Lane.
No, you're
I
fine.
have a quick emergency. I'll be right back.
No, you're fine. My question around HR, knowing that this is hiring, well, every season's hiring season, but knowing that we are trying to staff for next year, with social distancing, does the HR crew look different? And is that hindering in any way their ability to recruit, hire, and staff for next year?
Everything is 100% Zoom. We have not brought anybody in the building, nor are we doing any kind of face-to-face. We talked to network superintendents today to get messages to principals that principals have been, lax is the wrong word, but to your point, they have a lot to play, and they have not been diligent around going to Nimble and doing the interviews. So we had a conversation with the network superintendents today to get conversations with principals to let them know they need to be Zooming and interviewing persons by Zoom. So it has not hindered anything. What it has done is slowed down everything because everybody's so concerned around the technology stuff, the graduation kind of stuff. And so it has slowed down some stuff, but we made a priority today to get back on the calendar with principals to push them to start doing the interviews that they need to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
Dr. Adams?
oh, go ahead,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
no, I'm gonna say, and I apologize, this is just moving back a small bit, but
Mhm.
as you talking about this, it made me think about, and I may have missed it, so please let me know if I have the teachers, their contracts been sent out? And if they haven't, when will they be sent out?
Excellent, 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 excellent question. Tomorrow, we waited until after the meeting tonight. I will give an update on the school closing piece, and so it is my intent, after I read something to you tonight and get permission from the board, I will be moving forward with hopefully principal contracts as well as teacher contracts. But to your point, we have not given them out because we were waiting to see if we're going to look to close any schools and what kind of impact that would have. So with permission from the board tonight, or with some nodding, I know that I need a vote after I talk about the school closing piece. It is the intent that they will get contracts tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Adams.
You're welcome.
So my question is, or my comment is more of a general, just kind of overview and of what I think is really important right now, which is proactive communication to our families. So just making sure every step of the way, some type of regular contact. I know principals and teachers are doing this right now, like at the building level. But I think whether it's through social media or letters directly to families, some type of continued contact. So everybody is hearing the same message. I think is really important. And I'm hearing that echoed in some of the other board members' comments tonight and the questions that we're asking. So to the extent possible, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, if they can get some families can get some direct communication from central office, I think would be really helpful.
Thank you. We've tried to push that to school sites, Madam President, but I do hear clearly that the board would like the district central office to be the architect of pushing that out. So we will look to do a weekly update. Do it with school site personnel, superintendent's bulletin, but we will send something out weekly to parents as well, starting this week.
Great. And if it's possible, especially since we're moving to weekly food distribution where people are coming in once a week, if we can coordinate that weekly food distribution with the weekly update, I think that would be really productive.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Are there other questions on the pandemic update? So I had to, full disclosure, had to move rooms and I lost my agenda. So I believe we are at public comment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So obviously this looks a little different in the time of pandemic. So what I want to do here is just read what was officially part of our public notice for this meeting and just be clear to the public how we're doing the public comment portion for as long as we are under stay-at-home restriction. So this is the note that was at the bottom of the public notice for this meeting. The Board of Education is committed to receiving public comments during the COVID-19 pandemic and the corresponding suspension of in-person public Board of Education meetings. As part of this effort, the board is inviting interested members of the public to submit written comments to the following email address prior to the start of the April 14th, 2020 meeting at slpsinfo@slps.org. Subject to the requirements that commenters exercise proper decorum and respect for individual student employee privacy, the Board of Education will assemble the written comments and make them available for review by the public via a link that will be placed on the district website alongside the link for viewing rebroadcasts of the April 14th, 2020 meeting. This procedure for submitting public comments will remain in effect until the City of St. Louis Health Department and/or State of Missouri stay-at-home orders are lifted and the Board of Education returns to the normal in-person public meeting format. So beginning tomorrow, when that link is posted, so you all are watching via YouTube now, there will be a rebroadcast link posted on the website tomorrow, and the link for public comment will be alongside that for anyone who wishes to read through public comment at the time of the viewing of the meeting. Board members, are there any questions on that process? Okay, so consent agenda time. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda from 4 items 04-14-2001 through 04-14-2078?
I have a question on item 04-14-2005. So I would like to take that one up separately, or we can move that we approve and we can talk about that one. Either one is fine with me.
So let's take that one separately. Are there any other items to take separately? Okay, so let's do the first 4. Is there a motion for those? Please include the numbers.
I move that we approve consent agenda items 04-14-20-01 to 04-14-20-04.
Second, are there any questions or discussion on those first 4 items? Lewis.
Miss D. Jones,
Yes.
Miss S. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lane,
Yes.
Miss Miller is excused. Dr. Roberts. Dr. Roberts. Mrs. Val,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey Collins.
Yes.
The motion has passed.
Is there a motion for item 04-14-2005? And then that, if it's seconded, then we can take questions and discussion.
I move that we approve consent agenda item 04-14-20-05.
Second, Mr. Lane.
So my question, and the reason why I keep asking about HR activities, is I saw this consent agenda item that is asking for an increase in the cost of $25,000 for something that was originally 14. So it's not even an increase to 25, but by 25. And I just didn't understand. I guess I just didn't have enough information about what that was. It says additional expenses related to peak HR activities, but it doesn't really outline any of those activities. And it seems like it seems like a big amount to me. So I just wanted some clarity.
Yes, sir. So the HR department is transitioning from one program to Power School. And so part of that transition requires a redoing of a lot of different technology pieces. The person who is in this contract was an employee of the district, but because of her visa, she wasn't allowed to remain in the country. And so she was the one working on this particular project. She had to move to Canada, and as a result of that, she is still able to do the work online to do the work that was necessary. The amount of her salary would have been about the same amount as it would be, which would be the $39,000. So she left in December, I want to say December of, and Ms. Major could kind of help me because she went to court to try to assist in terms of getting this done. But she was an employee of the district, was told that she had to leave the country. When she left the country, we did a short-term contract with her, which I think was for $40,000 to continue to do the work. And she's still doing that work to complete the project of making a transition from the current system that HR is using to the Power School system. It's a special skill set that is highly technical. We could not find anybody at this point in time to replace her, and it was very difficult to find her to do this particular work. So that is the reason, Mr. Lane, why this is being put on the agenda. I think one of your board members asked the same question, and I tried to provide some detail relative to this particular item as well. And I have no problem providing you the same information I provided to that board member. But basically, it is to pay a person who was already a district employee, who was told to leave the country because their visa was not accepted. And they are continuing that work online because all the work can be done online. So it's a contract, basically. We contracted with this person to continue the work they were doing before at about the same salary they would have gotten if they were working with us.
And Dr. Adams, just to let you know, this is Jamie. It was the beginning of November that we had to separate her employment as the HRIS analyst. And then we started the contract around mid-November where she was doing the work remotely because that was not an issue with her visa. So this was really just an extension because she continues to do the work longer than we originally anticipated.
Thank you.
I'd just like to follow up on Ms. Major and Adam. My question is, we've seen her name on the consent agenda several times. One in November, she's here again, and she'll be on the May agenda. So I'm just trying to follow what's going on.
So she's on there every time that the contract runs out. We're only doing it for a few months at a time, with the goal of we're eventually going to have somebody in that position full time in HR as the HRIS analyst. So we're extending the contract. We don't want to go too far out because we don't anticipate this being a long-term solution to this problem.
Okay.
And I think my issue here, and maybe I think everything that you both have said makes sense, but the main line that says the increase is needed to cover additional expenses related to peak HR season activities means that there are peak activities that HR goes through every season. And this is normal, but that doesn't seem nothing about what was just explained by either of you seems like this is explained in that line. I feel like that's my issue. So I don't know what to.
Yeah, I understand in terms of like the descriptor of the work might not be exactly the way that I've described it, because I honestly don't know exactly what she's working on a day-to-day basis. I just know the nature of the work. So it could be that there is more of it at different times. But when it comes down to it, she's being paid like an hourly rate, right, for the work that she's actually doing. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. And again, I won't beat a dead horse on this, but I just think my point is, and again, I've continuously asked about like, what are the HR activities for the point of this saying that there are additional expenses related to that. And if the only additional expense is just an employee working from Canada, I feel like we should just kind of say that, or whoever writes up this agenda item.
That makes sense. I'll make sure to talk to HR about how that's written.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Ms. Major?
Yes, of course. Yes.
So I guess if I'm remembering back from the discussions that we had about this regarding her employment in November, and then as we've gone through, I think this has come up several times. So I just want to clarify and make sure I'm understanding correctly. She's doing the same tasks that she did as an employee, and the only reason she is no longer an employee is because of visa issues. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. And the hourly rate that she's getting is based on the salary she was getting as an employee?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Are you finished, Adam? Okay. So this is agenda item 04-14-2038, and this is in regards to the substance abuse program. And I wanted to know,
Donna, where so their motion is on the table for item 5.
Oh.
We need to wrap this up, but we can take that item separately if you want to.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
That was 38.
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll take it separately and we'll come back. Are there any other questions on 04-14-2005? Ms. Lewis.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
I'm gonna abstain.
Ms. Miller is excused. Dr. Roberts, Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Val,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey Collins.
Yes.
The motion has passed.
So Donna has requested to take item 38 separately. So if the next motion could be from items 06 to 37, unless there are others.
I move that we approve the agenda items 041420 06 through 041420 37.
Second, any questions or discussion on these items?
My question is in regards to the substance abuse program.
Donna,
Oh,
we're not
yes.
on your item yet. That's next. We got to vote these next ones. I haven't forgotten about you. Miss Lewis.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Ms. Miller is excused. Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Val,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey Collins.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Thank you. I move that we approve agenda item 04142038. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Donna.
Yes. Okay. I have a question about the memorandum of understanding with the Family Healthcare Incorporated, and they're providing substance abuse program. And I wanted to know, I think this is for homebound students.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, and so I guess my question is, with everything that's going on, I'm sure that we have a lot of students that are not homebound that are in need of a substance abuse program that we have yet to tap into. And I wanted to know, do we have one that is currently in existence in St. Louis Public School for our high schoolers and middle schoolers as well?
So this is specifically for special education homebound students because they don't have the ability to be in the school environment to get the kind of support. And so that's what this, your question, I think, is more general about what are we doing? High school students in the same thing?
Yes.
I'll get your feedback on that. I know we have multiple MOUs around this for kids that are not special ed, but this was targeted specifically for homebound special education students who cannot come to school. Obviously, there's a number of different reasons, and we want to make sure that the same access that a kid coming to school will get, they will get. But I will get you some clarity on what we're doing outside of this with high school students and drug abuse or these kind of services. I don't know off the top of my head. I just don't remember all of them, but I can get you a list of what we are doing, and Mr. Brown can provide that. But this is specific special ed.
No, I'm sorry. I just didn't recall ever going over a program that was related to substance abuse for our high schoolers, and that's the reason why I asked Dr. Adams.
Not a problem. And Mr. Brown just clarified by sending me a text. This would be for students who are special needs kids, homebound, who are type 1. So this would be a special needs student who got suspended for the rest of the year for, let's say, bringing a weapon to school. And this would be the counseling that this kid would get, or if the kid had a lot of, we could put regular students in regular programs, but special need kids have to have targeted resources, and that's what would happen in this particular case. And I'll get you all of the details around regular and special ed. Mr. Brown is texting me, and I don't want to kind of read everything he's saying right now.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions on this item?
No.
Miss Lewis.
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Ms. Miller is excused. Dr. Roberts? Dr. Roberts? Dr. Roberts? Mrs. Fowle?
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey Collins?
Yes.
Motion has passed.
Is there a motion to approve the remaining items?
I move that we approve items 04-14-2039 through 78.
Can you clarify the 04?
Sorry, 04 through 04-14-20-78.
Thank you. Second, any questions or discussion on these items? Ms. Lewis?
Ms. D. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Lane?
Yes.
Ms. Miller is excused. Dr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mrs. Fowle?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey Collins?
Yes.
The motion passed.
Before we move into board member reports, I believe Dr. Adams has some remaining updates.
Yes, I have one update. Today, see the community visioning report. I received the report, the full report, on April the 8th, and all roundtable summaries I received on yesterday. So that's why you're receiving it for the first time. I have, quite frankly, not at this time had a chance to read through all of it. While we were looking to, at least I was looking to make a recommendation to the board in March relative to the notion of school closings or consolidation of portfolio, I would like to postpone that recommendation, not cancel my recommendation, but postpone it until the fall of 2020, specifically tentatively around October 2020. This is all depends upon what happens around us returning to school and what that looks like. This will allow for a detailed review by staff of the documents, a presentation to the board by Emerging Wisdom, and feedback from the community, which is what we all promised this community and committed ourselves to. And I think it's obvious to all of us that we want to make sure that that occurs. And in the context of where we are now with the community not being able to come to meetings, of that, for that matter, for us to even have meetings in a face-to-face kind of way, I think it makes sense to delay it. Obviously, this recommendation is made contingent on the current pandemic that we all face. I would like to keep this item on the board work session for the months of May, June, and August. I think the board does not meet in July based on its own policies. But I'd like to keep this item on the agenda for the next 4 meetings, such that there are questions that arise as a result of the board reading it and having questions. I'd like to keep it as a present item on the agenda, not at the regular meeting, but at the work session, to address any questions or concerns the board might have moving forward as they digest the document. I would also like the board to consider, and this is the board to consider, to possibly have Emerging Wisdom do a presentation at a work session virtually like we are doing now. I don't know what kind of, I don't know that it has the same effect if we are standing in front of a crowd with a bunch of people. And so the board will have to weigh that against the kind of meeting we're having right now. The public can still participate by obviously listening, because if it's a work session, it's the public list. I mean, the public is listening anyway. The board is listening to the presenter, either myself or Emerging Wisdom. So I'd like you to consider that as one of the things as I look to do this. Postponing this gives me an opportunity to send contracts to principals, also to send contracts to teachers, and to move forward in a direction that we need to move forward in. The level of uncertainty around the pandemic does not need to be exasperated by the level of uncertainty around the possibility of school closings at this point in time. Thank you.
So board member reports. Adam, do you have a report?
Yeah, I just wanted to just extend a thank you to all the principals, teachers, all support staff that are out there trying to make sure that students get valuable education, even amongst this crisis. And also just thanks to you, Dr. Adams, for crowning the team and trying to make this as smooth, it's a tough word to use, but as smooth transition as possible. Yeah, that's it. So thank you all.
Susan?
I share the same sentiments, but nothing further outside of that.
Donna?
I just want to say thank you to everyone, and I share the same sentiments as my fellow board members. And I just appreciate everyone that's been sticking in here and working together. And I appreciate you so much. And I just want to say God bless all of you.
Natalie?
I also would echo the same sentiments, and we are all working on the fly, and everyone's improvisation skills are amazing. So including my fellow board members, we are here each in our own homes. So this is great. I also wanted to recognize the What's Next SLPS campaign. We have received, or I have received, over 75 emails from them requesting the same community involvement that we are wanting to stick to. So that is our promise to the people, and I just wanted to reassure the concerted effort of citizens who have reached out to us that that is what we intend to stick to. There is an MSBA Board of Directors meeting on April 17th, and if anyone has any questions or has anything for me going into that meeting, please let me know. Please just reach out to me via email or phone, and I will get any questions answered. I have no idea what really is going to be talked about, but I will be sure to give you guys an update with my next board report.
Joyce?
Yes, this is an unprecedented time that we're experiencing. And so I do want to salute Dr. Adams and the team working under your leadership. The pandemic plan was very thorough. I also want to salute all of the essential workers, our families who are standing on the front lines in this pandemic. I do want to share that the Council of Great City Schools is holding a weekly meeting across the country, a Zoom meeting, and there's some very, very good information that's being shared. They happen to be one of the strongest advocacy groups for urban education with direct connections to the federal level and advocating on our behalf, especially around the 4th edition of the stimulus package, so that it's earmarked specifically towards schools. We will experience as a school district impacts against our budget. And lastly, the Missouri School Board Association is also sharing some very relative and important information around what's possible for families and school districts during this COVID-19 pandemic. And so thank you everyone in the community for supporting putting kids first.
Great. I also just wanted to give a big thank you to everyone. I know this has been a huge undertaking, and we've got teachers working on the fly to learn virtual learning to roll that out to our students, and principals and everyone has really shown that this is all hands on deck, and the SLPS is a community that will come together. I think when everyone's working from home separately, it's really hard to get that recognition and get that support from your coworkers. So I just wanted to put that out there along with the other board members that we all see you and we know you're working hard, and we appreciate everything you're doing to get our 22,000 students up and going academically and emotionally and all of those things. It's really important, and it just shows that we are a true community in this district. So that has not gone unnoticed. And again, thank you. Couple of things for kind of refocusing the work of the board. Obviously, over the past month, however long this has been, the focus has been primarily on the pandemic response, which it absolutely should have been, making sure kids' needs were met first, and then getting the academic piece put together. So I wanted to kind of provide an update on a couple of things that we have been talking about as a board over the past couple of months. One of them is the renaming of Kennard School. So that was intended to be part of the school presentation from Dr. Adams, as we had that presentation in March, with that postponing until October. I do intend to bring that before the board at the April work session to feel out as a board, what kind of direction are we asking or wanting to provide to Dr. Adams about that? So not for discussion tonight, but just know that's coming before us on the agenda next month. Prior to that work session, I am going to assemble the information that we've previously received on that and get that back out to you so you can have that for context. The other is the grievance policy that we have previously had on agendas. It is my intent to put that before a vote in May. And so that will be an item for discussion at the April work session as well. So gradually getting back into some of the things that we had before us before the pandemic started, but obviously not losing our focus on the response. So I feel comfortable asking Dr. Adams to give us an update on the pandemic at every meeting, just so we can stay abreast of that situation, but still trying to incorporate some of the other things. And I hear your request to keep, either the report from Emerging Wisdom or the other, a standing item for the school consolidation plan over the next several work sessions as well. If there is nothing further, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? Also,
Second.
Ms. Lewis?
Ms. D. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. S. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Lane. Ms. Miller's excused. Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
Mrs. Val,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhoda Collins.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.